This is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov were ranked in their respective divisions at the beginning of the UFC rankings history. Back in February 2013, Conor McGregor had not yet fought in the UFC. Khabib, on the other hand, was a perfect 3-0 in the UFC and was ranked number 10 at lightweight. So obviously both fighters today are at the top of the lightweight division, but it's interesting to see where they started out in the first place, both in separate divisions with different timelines on how they reached the top. So before they fight at UFC 229, let's look back and see how we got to where we are today. So let's check it out. To start off, a random shuffle put Khabib Nurmagomedov ahead of Joe Lauzon into the number 9 position. Conor McGregor then debuted in the UFC, TKO'ing Marcus BRIMAGE. This didn't get him into the top 10 though. Josh Thompson TKO'd Nate Diaz with a perfectly placed head kick, bumping Khabib Nurmagomedov down to number 10. Pat Healy submitted Jim Miller, which bumped Khabib Nurmagomedov from number 10 to not even in the rankings anymore. So at this point, neither Khabib nor McGregor are in the top 10 of the UFC rankings. Khabib Nurmagomedov then defeated Abel Trujillo. That didn't bump him into the top 10. Conor McGregor was scheduled to fight Andy Ogle, but Ogle got injured and Max Holloway stepped in. McGregor won the fight by decision, but that win didn't put him into the rankings. Max Holloway at that time was also an unranked fighter. Khabib Nurmagomedov got a decision win over Pat Healy, bumping him back up to the rankings, all the way to number 7. And at the end of 2013, this is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov are in the UFC rankings. Yes, both Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor at one point in UFC rankings history weren't ranked, and at the same time. Luckily for Khabib, he was able to get back onto the rankings and move up all the way to number 7. Even though Conor McGregor had his first 2 wins in the UFC though, that wasn't enough to get him a top 10 placing. Let's see in 2014 if he's able to get there. The UFC expanded their rankings from top 10 to top 15, which means McGregor debuts in the rankings at number 12. Jeremy Stephens, though, got a win over Darren Elkins, bumping him up to number 10 and dropping McGregor a spot. Khabib Nurmagomedov got a decision win over Rafael dos Anjos, bumping him up 2 spots to the number 5 position. Yes, Khabib enters the top 5 of the lightweight division. A random shuffle put Conor McGregor back up to number 12. McGregor was then scheduled to fight Cole Miller, but Cole Miller got injured and Diego Brandao stepped in. Conor McGregor TKO'd Brandao, bumping him up from number 12 to number 10. TJ Grant was then removed from the rankings after suffering a concussion and not fighting. That bumped Khabib Nurmagomedov up 1 spot. Bobby Green then got a decision win over Josh Thompson, bumping Khabib up 1 spot as Thompson fell in the rankings. A random shuffle put Conor McGregor 1 spot above Dennis Siver up to the number 9 spot. Rafael dos Anjos defeated Benson Henderson, bumping Khabib up to the number 2 spot. Khabib was then scheduled to fight Donald Cerrone, but he tore his meniscus and was out of the fight. On that same fight card that Khabib was supposed to fight in, Conor McGregor defeated Dustin Poirier by TKO, bumping him all the way into the top 5 of the featherweight division. Anthony Pettis then submitted Gilbert Melendez, making Khabib the number 1 contender at lightweight. But not too fast, as Rafael dos Anjos got a decision win over Nate Diaz, bumping Khabib down to the number 2 spot. And at the end of 2014, this is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov were in the UFC rankings. A huge year for both Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, both cracking the top 5 of their respective divisions. Khabib at one point becoming the number 1 contender at lightweight, and Conor McGregor making his run for a title shot. Safe to say that these were both standout years for both McGregor and Khabib. But from this point we go on a bit of a diverging path with Khabib having injury problems. So let's see how 2015 sorts out. Conor McGregor got a TKO win over Dennis Siver, bumping him up from number 5 to number 4 at featherweight. Chad Mendes then defeated Ricardo Lamas, bumping McGregor up to the number 3 position. Khabib was then scheduled to fight Donald Cerrone again, but again he had to pull out due to a torn meniscus. Donald Cerrone instead fought John MAKDESSI and won, dropping Khabib to number 3. Conor McGregor was then scheduled to fight for the featherweight title against Jose Aldo, but Jose Aldo got injured, and on very short notice, Chad Mendes stepped in. Conor McGregor defeated Chad Mendes, bumping himself up from number 3 to number 1, holding the UFC Featherweight Interim Championship. Khabib Nurmagomedov was then scheduled to fight Tony Ferguson, but he injured his rib, and Khabib was out of the fight, scheduled for December 11th. And on December 12th, Conor McGregor shocked the world, knocking out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds and becoming the UFC Featherweight Champion. To end off the year though, Rafael dos Anjos TKO'd Donald Cerrone, bumping Cerrone down a spot, and Khabib up to number 2. And at the end of 2015, this is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov are in the UFC rankings. Yes, Conor McGregor is the UFC Featherweight Champion. He climbs the rankings from being unranked in 2013 all the way to the championship spot in 2015. Meanwhile, Khabib on the other side, even though he stayed at the number 2 position, he didn't fight. He keeps dealing with injuries. He isn't really reliant, not as active as Conor McGregor has been. So now we have Conor McGregor as the champion, but will he defend his title, and how does he make his way over to the lightweight division? And can he possibly fight in another division? I guess we'll see, because 2016, yeah, this is where things get weird. This is the point of the video where I ask if you like the video. If you like what we're doing here, then please go down and like the video and consider subscribing to MMA Nation. We put out a lot of good content, and I've got one rankings video right now in the bag that's ready to go out next week, but you'll miss it if you don't subscribe, so make sure to go do that right now. Alright, now let's get on to the next year. Conor McGregor was scheduled to fight Rafael dos Anjos in a lightweight title fight, but Rafael dos Anjos got injured and Nate Diaz stepped in, and the fight was at welterweight instead. Nate Diaz submitted Conor McGregor, giving McGregor his first loss in the UFC. Then Khabib was scheduled to fight Tony Ferguson again, but Ferguson got injured this time and was replaced by Daryl Horcher. Khabib Nurmagomedov then TKO'd Daryl Horcher, which bumped up Nurmagomedov to the number 1 contendership position. A rematch was then booked for McGregor-Diaz, and McGregor this time won by decision, and it was the best-selling UFC pay-per-view of all time. Tony Ferguson got a decision win over Rafael dos Anjos, bumping Khabib Nurmagomedov down to number 2. Khabib Nurmagomedov then submitted Michael Johnson, bumping him up to the number 1 contendership position, but UFC 205, the same event, Conor McGregor TKO'd the champion Eddie Alvarez. Conor McGregor is now your UFC lightweight champion and featherweight champion. Not too fast though, as a couple of weeks later, Conor McGregor was stripped of his featherweight championship, promoting Jose Aldo to the champion at featherweight and removing Conor McGregor from the featherweight rankings. And at the end of 2016, this is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov were in the UFC rankings. Yes, at the end of 2015, Conor McGregor's the featherweight champion, and at the end of 2016, he is the lightweight champion. And Khabib Nurmagomedov right behind him in the number 1 contendership position. So I know what you're thinking. Conor McGregor, he's the champion. Khabib's number 1. This is the end of 2016. Why are they now just fighting in 2018, the end of 2018? Well, you'll get to see why in 2017, because Conor McGregor wasn't a big fan of defending the lightweight title, and, well, you'll see what he does instead. Khabib Nurmagomedov was again scheduled to fight Tony Ferguson, but he was hospitalized due to a bad weight cut and was pulled from the fight. Conor McGregor then fought Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match, which basically took over all of the headlines for the summer and drew a crazy amount of pay-per-views. McGregor lost the fight by TKO, but that was pretty much expected. Tony Ferguson won the UFC Lightweight Interim title, submitting Kevin Lee and bumping Khabib Nurmagomedov down to number 2. Khabib then got a decision win over Edson Barboza, but that didn't change his ranking. And at the end of 2017, this is where Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov were in the UFC rankings. Yes, in one of the most bizarre years, Khabib had the chance to fight for a title, and then Tony Ferguson instead won an interim title. McGregor still hasn't defended the title but fought Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, 2017 was not a fantastic year for the lightweight division. Just really a lot of questions, and Khabib bumping down a spot, but still likely going to get an interim title shot that might turn into the real thing. What's McGregor doing? Yes, the division is officially in a state of chaos. Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson were scheduled to fight for Conor McGregor's vacant lightweight championship, but Tony Ferguson got injured a week before the fight and was replaced by Max Holloway, the featherweight champion. Unfortunately, Max Holloway had a bad weight cut and the doctors did not allow him to fight. So, in steps Al Iaquinta, who is now fighting Khabib for Conor McGregor's vacant lightweight championship. And in predictable fashion, Khabib Nurmagomedov got a decision win over Al Iaquinta, becoming the UFC lightweight champion. And this is where we are today, and this is where Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor are in the UFC rankings. So yeah, that is how we got to here. Khabib somehow winning the championship against a much lower ranked fighter, and Conor McGregor is back in title contention. So yes, a very weird set of circumstances that brought us to this fight. And like I said before, at the end of 2016 we should have gotten this fight, but it's here now. We are only a couple of days away from Khabib Nurmagomedov defending his title against Conor McGregor. Both took very weird paths. Both took a lot of time off, both 2 years without a fight while in the UFC, but now we get one of the greatest fights that I can ever think of. Just two people at their prime, both just dominant fighters, and it's going to be a really good fight, so I can't wait for it, and I can't see how this fight shapes the history of the lightweight rankings. So thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it, and again, if you can throw us a like and a subscription, that would be awesome. And if you want to see the full featherweight division and lightweight division videos, please click on the videos beside me. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you enjoy the fights.